Having a budget is so important in accomplishing your financial goals, but some people are often making some pretty big budgeting mistakes. Today, we're talking about those big budget mistakes and how you can avoid them. Hey guys, I'm Marissa and welcome back to my channel. Here on my channel, we talk about life and money and how you can enjoy life while still accomplishing financial goals, and I truly think that that is with the use of a budget. I'm a huge fan of budgeting. So if you want to learn more about budgeting, definitely subscribe to my channel so you won't miss any new videos. So my husband and I have been budgeting our entire marriage, and even like before that, I remember I was budgeting when I was in college, like the little bit of income that I have, and I loved being able to tell my money where to go with the use of a budget. Since my husband and I have been married, we've been able to pay off over $87,000 of student loan debt in 2.5 years. We've been able to save up for new to us used cars, and we've also been able to save for a down payment on a house. And truly, it's all because we've been able to use a budget to track our spending and see how we're doing month by month. And if you are wanting to get started with budgeting, I actually have my budget template for sale on my shop. I will have a link to that in the description box down below. You can use it in Excel, you can use it in Google Sheets, any sort of spreadsheet platform, and that is the budget template that we use each and every month. I know that budgeting can be frustrating for some people, and I want to eliminate that frustration as much as possible. So today we're talking about some of the biggest budgeting mistakes that you may be making, and I'm also going to share how we can fix that. The first budgeting mistake is not making a new budget each and every month. It's so important that when you are budgeting, you are making a new budget for every single month of the year that reflects the kinds of things that are actually going to happen throughout the year. I know that it's oftentimes the case that people will just take the budget that they did last month and just copy it over and paste it into the new month, and that's fine for some line items, but other things are going to fluctuate month by month. For example, your heat bill may be more during the winter than it is in the summer, and not every month has a birthday party that you have to buy a gift for. So if you are frustrated with budgeting and maybe you are not doing this, I would really encourage you to sit down and figure out a budget for each and every month, because every month is different. And the way to do that is to sit down with your budget accountability partner, if that's your spouse, and you can sit down and check out your calendar for the month ahead and see what kinds of things you may have going on. For example, things that always seem to sneak up on us are things like birthday parties or baby showers. Budgeting for those gifts is something that we sometimes forget ourselves. Also, take a look at things that you may have coming up in the next 6 months and see if there's anything big that you need to be saving towards. I know that one thing that always creeps up on us is like the car registration. It happens every 2 years, and so it's not always at the forefront of our minds, but it also isn't a small expense and sometimes can feel like it's blown the budget out of the water. So be looking for things that you know are coming up in the next 6 or so months that you can start planning for them now. The next budget mistake that you may be making is not tracking your expenses. And I know so many people do this. And I always say that tracking your expenses is like the most important part of budgeting. It's one thing to just write numbers down on a page as your budget for the beginning of the month, but it's so important that you're actually tracking your expenses to see where your money is going and see how your spending is actually going based on what you budgeted. So the way that we do this is every Sunday evening, I will sit down with my budget spreadsheet and I will enter in all of the transactions I've had for that week. My budget spreadsheet has a place for you to put in your budget and then record your actuals, but also has a place for you to be able to track and list all of your expenses. And so in that section of my budget template, I will list out all of the transactions that I've had, and then I will update my actuals column to my budget. And it's so important to do this not just at the end of the month, but also throughout the month. And this is why we do this on a weekly basis, because that way we can see how we're doing through the month and see if we need to make any mid-month adjustments if necessary. For example, we may notice that we have spent $200 of our $300 grocery budget and we're only 2 weeks into the month, and that may mean that I have to scale back on our grocery shopping for the rest of the month, or decide if I really want to spend this much on groceries, I'm going to have to take money from a different category to be able to put it towards our food budget. Remember, a budget is not set in stone. It's not locked into place when you create it at the beginning of the month. So definitely, it's okay to have that flexibility, and that's why it's so important to be tracking your expenses as the month is going on. For people who have never even started a budget before, my best recommendation is for them to actually just start tracking their expenses to see where they are spending their money, because you can't really create a budget if you don't have an idea of where your spending is at already. So that's why tracking your income and expenses is such a huge and important part of budgeting. The The third budget mistake you may be making is not using sinking funds. I am a huge fan of sinking funds. I know that it can kind of sound complicated, that it has like this fancy terminology, but it's really not that complicated. A sinking fund is just basically like a savings line item that you have in your budget, something that you're working on saving up for. And it oftentimes is something that you know you have coming up and you know the cost that it's going to be, but other people will also use sinking funds just as like putting money away for a specific reason. For example, we do this when we know that we are going to be going on vacation. If I know that we're going to be going on a vacation in 10 months and it's going to be $3,000, then I can save $300 each month into a sinking fund. And by the time the vacation rolls around, we'll have all the money set aside, ready to be spent for vacation. Same sort of thing for Christmas. If you plan to spend $1,200 on Christmas for the year, you could save $100 each month, and that way when December rolls around, Christmas isn't going to blow your budget out of the water, but instead you're going to have the money set aside ready to be spent. Using sinking funds is a great way to be able to balance out your budget for the year and not have any sort of larger expense sneak up on you and completely bust your budget or force you to use your emergency fund. There are many different sinking funds that you can incorporate in your budget. I've done a video on that, so I will leave it up above, but some of the ones that my husband Jacob and I have are an extra giving fund we put $50 a month into just so that we can be able to give spontaneously if we want. We have the money set aside. We also have a Christmas fund that we put $50 a month into right now, and we have a house maintenance fund with $100. We plan to up that to $350 here soon, but that'll help us cover some of those big house maintenance costs that we can expect to have in the next several years. We also have a car maintenance fund of $75 a month, and that helps cover routine maintenance that we may have on our cars, as well as things that may come up unexpectedly. It'll be so nice to have the money set aside, ready to be spent for the use of car maintenance. We also have a vacation fund, and we have a baby fund, as we are expecting a baby here in just a couple months, which is crazy. And so we've been planning our finances for that by setting money aside marked as baby, and that way we can spend it on baby related expenses. So to start using sinking funds in your budget, take a look at things that you may have coming up in the next 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, however long that may be, and figure out what kinds of things you should be saving up for, and therefore how much you should be saving each month. You can do that again by taking the total cost and dividing it by how many months until you're going to incur that cost, and you can save that amount each month into a sinking fund. My budget template also has an entire area where you can track all of your sinking funds, so if you're wanting to check that out in your budget, it's in my budget template, link down below. The fourth budget mistake you may be making is not giving yourself any fun money. If you're super strict on your budget, trying to pay off debt, really save aggressively, you may think that you don't need to spend any sort of money on fun because you could be putting it towards a bigger financial goal. And I was totally that way when we were paying off our debt. I just wanted to be done with it so soon, and I thought that we couldn't spend any sort of money on fun. But the problem with that is that budgeting then felt very restrictive, and I think that really a budget gives you the permission to spend. It's going to hold you accountable to working on your financial goals, to tracking your expenses, and also give you the permission to spend on things that you enjoy. And so with that, it's really important that you find balance in your budget between saving and spending and fun. While my husband and I were getting out of debt, like I said, we honestly didn't spend a whole lot of money on fun, but we did have a little bit allocated. We each got $25 a month of personal spending money that we could spend on whatever we wanted. And then we also put I think it was less than $50 a month into eating out, and that was fun for us, and we could go out a couple times during the month. We went on a lot of trips to McDonald's to get McFlurries. That was our fun treat. And so whatever that fun thing may be, it doesn't need to be expensive, and especially if you're working on paying off debt, it shouldn't be expensive, but definitely give yourself the permission to spend a little bit on something that is fun and life-giving. If you don't have a line item for any sort of fun spending in your budget, you may find that you're just busting the budget on spending money on fun because you don't have a set amount allocated for that line item. And you may also just want to give up fully on budgeting because it's going to feel so restrictive. So don't make budgeting feel like a financial straitjacket. It is there to also give you the permission to spend, so give yourself a little bit of wiggle room there and permission to have a little bit of fun. Just make sure you include it in the budget and you're tracking your expenses as you go. The fifth biggest budget mistake that you may be making is not working together as a team with your spouse. In a relationship, it's oftentimes that one person is a budget nerd and the other is the free spirit, and so one person may be super excited about putting together the budget and the other person may not care at all. But I will say, if you are one of those budget nerds, make sure that you include your spouse in on financial discussions. And that may even mean putting together the budget and sitting down with your spouse to have them look over it and agree upon what you guys are deciding to do with your money. Now, I am definitely the budget nerd in my relationship, as you may have guessed, but I do like to sit down with my husband Jacob every month to go over, here's how last month went, and then here's our plan for this month, and we can kind of talk about like these long-term plans that we have for our finances and also short-term plans, and he can also weigh in on these financial decisions. It's so important for us to both be in these discussions because money can be such a dividing topic in a relationship, and we don't want that to be the case at all. So instead, learning to have open dialogue and open discussion about money with your spouse and really working together as a team to accomplish your financial goals and enjoy life with your financial resources. If you want to talk to your spouse about finances, but you're not sure where to start, I actually have a free worksheet on my website. I will have a link to that in the description box down below. You just type in your email and get it sent to you, and you can use that to walk through a budget meeting or a budget discussion with your spouse. So those are the 5 biggest budget mistakes that I see people making, and I hope that you guys now feel confident to be able to tackle those and work on your financial goals with the use of a budget. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more budgeting videos. And if you want to learn more about budgeting, check out this video here, and I'll see you over there.